I felt like I was crying in front of somebody, but I didn't.
I've also tried to shoot down under here and it doesn't work. It just works to say, yeah. My 7-year-old has to shoot down when he's wearing a mask, otherwise he's tell your friend his mask is so it's like so cringy and disgusting. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, good evening, everybody. We'll go ahead and start the meeting with an invocation, which we observe with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Agent,
Here.
Clegg,
Here.
Halliburton,
Here.
Sanchez,
Here.
Thompson,
Here.
Woodings,
Here.
all present.
Thanks. Next up, we have the minutes from our work session and evening meeting last week of March 2nd.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move approval of the city council minutes of the work session and regular evening meeting of March 2nd, 2021.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Agent,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. Next up, we have two reappointments to the Building Code Board for 4-year terms ending March 2025. First, Russ Phillips, who had a family emergency come up, so he's not able to attend. And I just want to convey his sentiments on his behalf. He wrote today that he's excited to continue contributing to the life, health, and safety of our citizens. Thanks again. And please let the city council and mayor know that I appreciate our city's leadership through this pandemic. We're proud to be Boiseans. And Russ, I thank you for your continued service to the city of Boise. We are glad that you call Boise home. And with that, Tyler might be here, but I'll take a unanimous consent request for these two.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
I ask unanimous consent for the reappointment of Russ Phillips and Tyler Resnick to the Building Code Board for 4-year terms ending March 2025.
Without objection. Great. Is Tyler with us this evening? If he is, I just want to give him a chance to say hello. Jamie, no. All right. Well, thank you, Tyler, as well for your continued service to our city. And next up, we have the reappointment of Tony Rourke to the Ethics Commission for a 4-year term ending February 2025.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent for the reappointment of Tony Rourke to the Ethics Commission for a 4-year term ending February 2025.
Without objection.
And Tony's here.
Hi, Tony. Thank you so much for your continued service on this commission. I was so glad when I saw that you wanted to continue your work and appreciate that you're here tonight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Madam President, council members. It's really been my distinct privilege and honor to serve on the commission. So I'm delighted to serve for another term. Thank you.
Madam Mayor. Thank you, Tony, for your service. This commission is so important to the city. It gives us insight into our own actions and also is available to make rulings if necessary. And I think it's still the only one in the state. And it's, thank you for the example you set and for the service. Appreciate it.
Very happy to serve. Thank you all for your service as well.
So good to see you.
Bye-bye.
Night. And next up, we have the ratification of the emergency health order. If people tuned into our work session earlier this evening, we had staff review it, but just a quick top line overview. For those still watching or watching newly now, this order continues the city's mask mandate and requirements of distancing and other things like washing your hands, as we've been saying now for a year, actually a year tomorrow. And I want to point out, because people have asked, we will likely expect to have a mask order in place as long as the Central District Health is issuing health advisories, strongly advising the communities in the Treasure Valley to wear masks. As the economic hub of this region and state, we believe it's very important to protect our economy by protecting our people, listening to the science and taking heed from the health district that's strongly advising us to wear masks. And this also sets up a new partnership with Central District Health that allows us to open up the opportunity for more events, watching kiddos playing sports, other things in the community where we can gather in groups larger than 50 after the Central District Health has reviewed plans and either recommended changes or recommended approval. And so we appreciate the partnership with Central District Health to make it possible for Boiseans to begin to enjoy events and things that we've all missed so much. And with that, it's before you.
I move that we approve Resolution 111-21, ratifying Public Health Emergency Order 2015, enacted March 2nd, 2021.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there a discussion?
Madam Mayor, echoing what you said, I think it makes good economic sense and good scientific sense to continue wearing masks in this very important period when people are beginning to get vaccinated, but we have all these variants out there. At the same time, allowing for this partnership with Central District Health so that we can open up some of our sports venues to small crowds of parents and begin to look at what it would take to put on small special events. So appreciate Central District's Health partnership in this and appreciate the amendment to the order to allow those things.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say on a personal note how much I appreciate your commitment to keeping our city as safe as we can possibly be until everyone who chooses to do so can receive their vaccination. As somebody who lives in a high-risk category as a type 2 diabetic, every day that passes, I know that the odds are against me of not contracting COVID until I can receive the vaccinations. And I know there are a lot of people like me in the community who are anxious for their opportunity to be vaccinated. And so to have that kind of support, to live in a city where we have a mayor and a council who supports us taking those measures of continuing the protocols of staying out of those public gatherings, if at all possible, where we could be put in harm's way, keeping up the hand washing, keeping the mask wearing up. I just want to thank you so much for putting that added protection and keeping that in place for us.
Madam Mayor, I just wanted to offer a quick reflection on this time last year when we were deciding as a city what kinds of precautions we wanted to take to keep our citizens safe, and how long a year it's been and how much has changed. And now we get to make these decisions with so much more science behind them, so much less guesswork. And we really have a lot of great public health guidance on how we actually keep our community safe. And I see that reflected here. So thank you for keeping the orders up. It really does make a difference, I think, to have these instead of as recommendations, as orders, so that people really know what to expect when they go into our businesses and as they're going about their daily activities in the city. So thanks.
Madam Mayor,
Go ahead.
I brought something up similar in the work session earlier, but I think one of the things that we've all missed so much this last year is being in community with each other. And what I really appreciate about this order is the safety that it continues to promote, but also with the ability to partner with Central District Health to find ways to continue to build community and to do it safely. I think that that's something that Boise is known for. It's something that we love about Boise, and it's something that's really exciting to see in the horizon. So I'm excited to vote in favor of this.
Well, thanks, everybody. Before a vote, I just want to say, first off, I appreciate the thanks, but this wouldn't have been possible without this council also valuing and recognizing the link between protecting public health and protecting our economy and keeping this community strong. It has been a year. It's been a long year. So many people have sacrificed, and the progress we've made also wouldn't be possible without the partnership of the health community, the business community, and residents that from day one in Boise City have said, we're looking out for each other. And that says so much about who we are, the special place that we live, and most importantly, the people with whom we do commune in this community. And it gives me great hope as we see a light at the end of the tunnel for our ability to come back together collectively and ensure we recover in a very strong, resilient, and people-focused way. So thank you all.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
one more thing I forgot to pass along. Thank you to you and to the city of Boise and my fellow colleagues on council. On Saturday, I met with Mujeres Unidas de Idaho, which is a Hispanic women's organization here in the state. They had been requesting masks, and was very happy to deliver 1,000 disposable masks to them for distribution to the Latinx community, which, as we know, over the past year is highly vulnerable to infection based on the type of work that they do. And so they wanted me to convey their thanks to you and to the council for providing those resources for them.
Thank you.
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. And now we have the special privilege of our once a year sitting as the Board of Corrections to hear and correct assessments levied for the operation and maintenance of the Boise City Municipal Irrigation System for the 2021 irrigation system. John, welcome. John is here from our team to probably share some information with us, and then we see if anybody's showed up to contest their assessments.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, members of the council, good evening. Thanks for the introduction. My name is John Gunnarsson. I work for our Public Works Department, primarily oversee our geothermal system and our pressure irrigation systems. As we're aware, the city operates and maintains irrigation systems that serve 11 subdivisions in West Boise, and therefore we are our own municipal irrigation district. So there we follow state code on the rules and responsibilities to manage these districts, and that is what we're doing tonight. You are acting as the board of directors for this once a year opportunity to allow owners, the public, to dispute their assessments and correct any errors in their assessment. So this year, for water year 21, the assessment rate remains unchanged at $935 an acre. That assessment rate has been the same since 2018. We do not need any rate increases in the foreseeable future. So therefore, assessments were mailed out to property owners in February. Staff is not aware of any errors in the assessment. We haven't gotten any concerns from it. But again, per state code, this is the opportunity for the public to dispute any assessments. So, Madam Mayor, with your permission, I recommend that the floor be open to anybody who may have an error in their assessment. And if there's nobody there this evening, let's formally note that no corrections are needed. Thank you. I'm open for any questions as well.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. John, just a real quick question. If people testify or if they don't, at the end of it, do you need a motion to accept the $935 an hour rate, or is that just assumed?
Great question, Madam Mayor. The assessment rate of $935 was approved in a January city council meeting. So the budget is set. Assessment rate is set. It's been mailed out to the customers. This is, for example, if there were any changes of ownership, if somebody wants to opt out and be de-annexed from the irrigation district, if they no longer want to receive surface water, those kind of issues, regarding their bill, and if they don't agree with it.
Thank you. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure that I was correct on that.
You are correct.
Madam Mayor, I have no one with their hands up on the virtual meeting to testify.
So just in case anybody is here to testify, if you'll please raise your little Zoom hand, the clerk will call on you and we'll hear from you. Give you another chance.
Have to officially open a public hearing and close.
Oh, do I have to? Okay, so I'll officially open the public hearing and now invite members of the public to raise your hands if you'd like to testify.
Madam Mayor, we still have no hands online to testify.
So the record should, will the record please reflect that nobody showed up to contest the assessed levies? And with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. And yeah, so this is one of those things that we don't do very often, so I'm not so smooth at this. Because nobody showed up to protest their assessments, there's no action that needs to be taken this evening. So we've closed the hearing and we can move on to the consent agenda. Thank you, John. Great to see you.
Thank you, guys.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion and a second discussion? Yes.
Yes, I'd like to recuse myself from resolution.
Is Elaine's microphone on?
Oh, Council President, is your mic on?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thought I hit it, but apparently not. I would like to recuse myself from Resolution 11521, which includes a contract with Jacobs Engineering.
Great. Any other discussion? All right. With that, will you call the roll?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. And now we will move into ordinances. There's nothing on first or second reading, but we do have one on third reading.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move that further reading of ordinance 521 be dispensed with and the record reflect that it has been read for the third time in full.
Second. We have a motion and a second, clerk?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries. ORD-5-21, an ordinance amending Title 9, Chapter 2, Boise City Code to adopt exemptions to development impact fees for affordable housing, to provide for a process and criteria for such exemptions and providing an effective date.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move that ordinance 521 be approved.
Second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Go ahead.
I'm looking forward to getting this ordinance enacted and seeing if there are folks who will take us up on the offer to forego impact fees in return for building some affordable housing. I think it's certainly something that I believe will work and worth a try. Thanks for bringing it forward.
Madam Mayor. I too am looking forward to seeing some folks take advantage of this and also appreciate the financial structure that this is built on, which is to exempt the development impact fees, but then for transparency's sake, take those fees from our housing fund. So I think that adds that extra level of transparency that our citizens have come to expect. And I hope it goes very far in some affordable housing.
All right. I'll just say that, last week we had, I think it was 2 developments that were offering affordable housing. We've got this tonight, the third reading passage of this that we hope will further incent more. Looking forward also to the housing bonus ordinance, seeing that be used by some particular developments in the near future. So this council and our office really values bringing as many tools to the table as possible, and this was one of them. We're excited to see work.
All right, Clegg,
Yes,
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay. We are moving into the public hearing portion of our evening. Everybody in the council chambers is city staff at this point. So I'm going to expect that everybody I'm planning on talking this evening is online. With this first one, nobody has signed up in advance. Oh, with all of them. Okay, so what I'm going to do for each of these, for members of the public waiting, hoping if you're here to testify, with every public hearing item, staff will start, the applicant will then move into their presentation. And then I'll see if there's a neighborhood association of record wanting to testify. And then we'll open it up and just ask people to raise their hands on Zoom, and we'll call you name by name. And with that, welcome. This is ZOA 20-4.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. My name is Josh Wilson with Planning and Development Services, and it's my pleasure to be with you here tonight to present a proposed ordinance amendment aimed at modifying the site posting and mailed notice procedures for specific types of planning applications. In late 2019, the city adopted changes to the development code regarding application processes, including specific procedures for neighborhood meetings, increased radius notices of public hearings, and requiring applicants to install the on-site public notice signs. After working with these standards for a year, we have identified some changes that we think will further improve the process and help to include more public involvement. First, we would propose to eliminate the 12-day waiting period to submit an administrative variance application, requiring or following the required neighborhood meeting. Signatures from these same neighbors saying they do not object to the application are required for an application to be submitted, and thus the requirement to wait to apply is unnecessary because all involved parties have agreed that they do not object and have reviewed the proposal. Second, we would propose to increase the mailed notice radius to 500 feet for neighborhood meetings on applications which also require a 500-foot mailed notice of the public hearing. This will align the two notices and ensure that all parties, involved parties are notified of both meetings and can increase their involvement. And finally, we would propose to increase the size of Category 3 hillside grading work sessions to the 4x4-foot large wood signs, again, to increase public notice and involvement. At the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing on January 4th, the commission voted to eliminate a proposed ordinance amendment, which would have eliminated posted signs and mailed notices for large subdivisions within specific plan areas, such as Barber Valley, Harris Ranch, Syringa Valley, after taking testimony from registered neighborhood associations that were opposed to removing that provision. The thought had been that those area plans go through multiple years or months or years of public involvement. And then in an effort to streamline staff resources and processing, the proposal was to eliminate that mailed and posted notice. The commission did vote unanimously to remove that from the ordinance amendment. So with that small change, the planning team finds that the ordinance amendment promotes the goals and practices of Blueprint Boise. It encourages orderly and informed development processes. And with the Planning and Zoning Commission's unanimous recommendation of approval, we would respectfully request your approval here tonight. And I will stand for any questions. Thank you.
It looks as if there are no questions at the time. Okay, so this is a public hearing. I'll go ahead and see if anybody online is here to testify.
Madam Mayor, I have John Mooney with his hand up.
John Mooney, you said?
Yes.
Great, welcome, John.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. John Mooney, 7153 East Highland Valley Road, representing the Barber Valley Neighborhood Association. I want to thank staff for responding to our inputs on item number 4 that Planning and Zoning then took action on. One of the things that was concerning us was the specific plans are, we've learned a lot in SPO1 and SPO2, and we're kind of worried about how SPO3 is going to go. So I just wanted to get that in front of you and make sure that you're aware that we've got some concerns about how SPO3 will be developed as far as public input goes. In particular, that's why we asked about the signage and retaining that public noticing. Some of the conversation with Planning and Zoning was that they believe that it's pretty simple for the public to break into the specific planning process. And our experience has been that's not the case. It's really difficult to propose quote unquote amendments to the specific plans, although SPO1, for example, is on Amendment 7. The problem is the amendments are a huge burden for staff, and your staff is strapped. So I just want to make sure that you're aware that that's kind of a process issue and something that you need to be aware of, that there isn't an easy way to incorporate best practices into a specific plan as we go along. Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Go ahead.
may I just ask Mr. Mooney a question real quick? Mr. Mooney, I know that you are probably super familiar with what you're talking about, but I unfortunately am not. Is SPO3 part of the Barber Valley specific plan, the Harris Ranch specific plan? What are you referring to?
Councilmember Woodings, I'm referring to SPO3 as Syringa Valley. It's the development area south of the airport off of Lake Hazel. And a number of thousands of rooftops plan to go in there within the city limits. So that's an example of an area that doesn't have any existing residents. And so it takes folks like us that are familiar with the specific plans to kind of represent those people that don't live there yet, but they will live there soon.
Thank you very much. I'm very familiar with Syringa Valley, so I appreciate you clarifying that for me.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I have no one else on the virtual meeting with their hand raised.
Okay. With that, we'll close the hearing, but are there additional follow, or I should have said, is there additional follow-up from staff? And if not, any questions for Josh? Nope. All right. Then I'll go ahead and close the hearing.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
With that, I would move approval of ZOA 20-4 City of Boise Amendment to the Development Code regarding specific procedures, including changes to posting requirements for administrative variances, the radius of neighborhood meeting notices, and the posting of specific application types, hillside grading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor,
Oh, who's that? Oh, Councilman Thompson. Go. Why don't we go with TJ first? Councilman Thompson?
thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick note, very supportive of this. I really liked the expanded radius of the notifications in particular. No, we've heard from citizens about that for some time. Also, I want to compliment John Mooney. His input is always very valued, and it's very useful. And I learned a lot about SPO 3 as well. Thanks, John.
Madam Mayor.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, staff. And the fact that we only had one person here tonight to testify tells me the success of this ordinance and the changes that were made in 2019 after a year-long process with a lot of very concerned neighbors. We promised them at that point that we would review it regularly and bring back changes as we discovered things that would work better. And really appreciate seeing these changes tonight. The fact that we don't have anyone testifying tells me that we must be doing a good job with it. So thanks a bunch.
All right, clerk. Thank you.
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Great, thank you. Next up, we have CR 20-16, an annexation of 2.97 acres with a zoning designation of A1 with a development agreement. And first up, we have Cody Riddle. Welcome back, Cody. And then Jeff Bauer. Jeff, if you're there, just get ready. You're up next. And then I'll go through Neighborhood Association and see if anybody has signed up to testify. Go ahead.
Hi, Madam Mayor, members of council. This item is a request to annex a roughly 3-acre parcel that's addressed at 6506 North Eugene Lane. If you're like me and haven't heard of Eugene Lane, it's located northeast of the Hill Road and Pierce Park intersection. The currently undeveloped property, as you can see, is all surrounded by city land. It's currently zoned RP, or Rural Preservation, in Ada County. The request is intended to facilitate ultimately the construction of one single-family home. If annexed, it would clean up an improper land division that occurred in Ada County, I believe, back in the 70s, and the applicant can speak a little further to that. Also, as you can see, it kind of cleans up a city boundary and most notably does not create a path for future or further annexation. The property is almost an island in the county, surrounded by previously annexed lands. Like surrounding properties, this property would be served by their own well and septic. It's not something we typically see, but again, is consistent with those other homes on Eugene Lane. None of our service providers raised concerns with the request. As it relates to emergency services, they are already serving all of the surrounding properties. Certainly if we were talking about a subdivision or multiple homes, we would probably be looking at this quite differently. But again, we're talking about one single family home on an existing parcel. That will be ensured through the inclusion of a development agreement that's attached to the request. That agreement again limits this 3-acre parcel to a single family home. Also, given the slope, it requires any home to be placed on the lower portion of the lot or land essentially designated buildable and not slope protection on the land use map of the comprehensive plan. As you probably saw in the record, there was a bit of testimony at the commission and in late correspondence. Concerns focused on the maintenance of Eugene Lane, use of other utilities in the area, and then emergency services. There was also concern with the potential for further development of the property. We certainly acknowledge these concerns as it relates to Eugene Lane. That's a private matter that the applicant will need to address before they construct anything. Further development beyond that single family home is prohibited without modifying the development agreement that is attached to this request. That modification would require a full public hearing process. I would also note again that emergency services are already serving the homes in the area, include those that exist on Eugene Lane. I believe that concludes my comments. It'd be good to hear a bit from the applicant this evening. This certainly is a somewhat unique situation, and they can speak further to that. As you saw in the record, the commission did recommend annexing this parcel with that very narrowly written development agreement, and we are recommending you do the same this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Cody. Any questions for Cody? I have one. So everybody that lives on Eugene Lane is still on septic? Is that what you said?
Madam Mayor, that's correct.
So, and anything else over there that's still on septic, or is it just Eugene Lane?
Madam Mayor, just Eugene Lane. Sewer hasn't, as we go over the hill, we see Pierce Park on this map, and there's quite a change in topography there. Ultimately, sewer would extend up Pierce Park Lane, but it wouldn't come over and serve these properties.
Gotcha.
The properties we see on Hillsborough Place here are served by sewer.
And
believe-
just the development on Eugene Lane predated that?
Madam Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, great, thanks. Hi, Jeff, you can go ahead. Oh, wait, nope, I take that back. Sorry, Jeff. Councilman Halliburton, you've unmuted.
Sure, Madam Mayor, thank you. Cody, Eugene Lane is an unimproved road. Is it a dirt road?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, I believe it's a mix of dirt and gravel. The home furthest up Eugene Lane does have a paved driveway on their portion of it. Before any sort of construction permit would be issued for developing a home on this property, we would have to look at improvements to Eugene Lane, including paving for fire access.
And Madam Mayor, just to follow up there.
Sure.
So Cody, because it's annexation and the city of Boise requires paved driveways or paved access, that would be a requirement that they or the other property owners wouldn't be grandfathered into?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, that's where this property is currently undeveloped. They would be required to provide that paved access given its location in the city. And the application wise, before they could build anything, we would be able to review that in conjunction with fire, public works, through the application of a hillside development permit where all those agencies have the opportunity to review and comment.
Thank you, Cody. If I have more questions about it, I'll follow up towards the end.
Great. Okay, now Jeff, it's your turn. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. Jeff Bauer, address is 601 West Bannock in Boise, and I am here tonight on behalf of the applicant and landowner. First, I do want to thank planning staff, Cody and Carla Nelson below. They've done fantastic and been super helpful. I don't want to reiterate what Cody said. This is a pretty simple, straightforward application. We're asking for the city to annex a single 2.9 acre parcel and give it an A1 open land zoning designation. We did propose that this annexation and zoning be conditioned on the city also adopting a pretty specific development agreement to lock this down to one buildable lot. Overall, we agree with the project report's annexation and zoning analysis, and we also agree with the conditions of approval from planning staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission. In short, we believe that annexation is proper because this piece of property is in the city's area of impact, and it is, as you can see, nearly surrounded by the city limits as they exist today. We selected the A1 open land zone because it's the lowest density zone appropriate for property designated as suburban land, which this partially is. We also requested A1 open land because it's consistent with neighboring zoning to our west. This is a unique infill site, and we tried to tailor this application as best we could to strike a balance between providing usable home site as well as being compatible with the surrounding uses and topography. As Mr. Riddle mentioned, we're not asking the council to approve any specific dwelling tonight. We're only asking for the annexation and zoning at this time. And I do want to give the council a little background on why that is. The parcel configurations and lot splits in this area are pretty long and complicated. But as to this lot specifically, it is the result of a series of illegal lot splits that occurred in the 1970s. It was conveyed by a divorce decree in the 90s, and then in 2003 to Miss Sharon Williams, who passed away last year. Our clients are the beneficiaries of Miss Williams' estate, and now they're trying to sell this property to close out her estate. And this application cleans up those illegal subdivisions, making title to the property insurable, which is, you know, important to make this a valuable asset to the estate. It's always been vacant land, and as far as we're aware, there's never been any development application proposed on this parcel. So with that history, after looking at the land around us and studying Blueprint Boise, we did decide to seek annexation and A1 zoning in Boise instead of entitlements with the county. Our intention, again, is just to bring this into conformance for a sale. And important, as noted in the staff report and reiterated by Cody tonight, is that no development can go forward on this site until a Class 2 hillside development permit is brought before the city. That is a public hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission. We agree with staff and the commission that any site-specific development conditions should be held off until the time when that hillside 2 permit does come before the city, so that those conditions can be properly tailored to the development that is proposed. And that's all I have for the council tonight, but I'd be happy to stand for any specific questions.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Jeff, thanks for being here tonight. So my question did have to do with just what you spoke about. Is it your intention, after you've done the analysis and developed a hillside permit, to identify a building envelope as part of that?
Mayor McLean.
You're gonna tell us where exactly the house will be, and the rest of the lot, as I understand it, will remain open.
Mayor McLean, Councilwoman, that's correct. And we've endeavored to do some of that already with the development agreement. Mr. Riddle did show you a slide where we've already agreed to restrict portions of the property that are have steeper slopes. And in this photo, you can see at the southwest corner of the property, there's been some grading that's occurred already. And yes, that's certainly we're not developing the site, but just being out there on site, that's most likely the most viable place for a future home site.
Thank you. Second question, depending on when this comes forward and whether or not we have completed the fire station on Gary Lane, given the topography and the surrounding landscape, would the developer be willing to sprinkle this house if necessary?
Mayor McLean, Councilwoman, again, not proposing any specific development tonight, but that is in preliminary email correspondence with Boise Fire. That is something that they are looking, that is a condition that I think they will want to impose in the future, and it does seem reasonable to us at this time.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to get that on the record.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Bajent.
Thank you. I wasn't clear when your client intends to sell the property. Is it to sell the property and get rid of it from the estate as soon as annexation and zoning occur, or after the hillside development permit is obtained, or at some future time? What is the timeline that your client is looking at for disposing of the property?
Mayor McLean, Council Member Bajent, as soon as possible. The property was actually under contract to be sold when basically the client was sort of the seller. Our client was caught flat-footed with this illegal subdivision issue and title not being willing to issue insurance on the property. So we will not be proposing the hillside development permit. Don't know how soon the prospective buyer will, but we do want to sell it after annexation and zoning.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Before I open it up to the public, well, first we'll do neighborhood association. Any further questions for Cody? All right. First off, the neighborhood association of record for this area is Collister. Kate Levin, are you here or someone from Collister here?
I do not have Kate online, Madam.
Okay, we didn't expect so, but I just wanted to check. And then right now I have nobody signed up in advance. Is there anybody raising their hand?
Madam Mayor, Richard Llewellyn has his hand raised.
Great. Hi, Richard.
Give me one moment, Madam
Oh,
Mayor.
Richard, we are, the clerk is pulling you in somehow.
Madam Mayor, Mr. Llewellyn should be available to speak.
Hey there, we can see you. If you unmute, we'll be able to hear you too.
Great. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Richard Llewellyn, 9170 Hill Road. I am familiar with this property. One of my best friends lived on Eugene Lane. The family still lives there, dating back to the 1960s. It's often been contentious what goes on up Eugene Lane due to the road primarily, but also to this illegal subdivision. I would just want to address a couple of things. Primarily when kind of the rational discourse that we may or may not have when we discuss this as infill. The applicant clearly states it's infill, and I believe that that's kind of like saying the earth is flat. This is not infill. It is most definitely on sprawl by every measure of a sprawl that we have. There's no sewer there, nor is there water there, so sprinklers, fire sprinklers won't work well as soon as electricity is cut and the well doesn't work. There's no sewer along Hill Road going to the east along Hill Road from here. So it's just so frustrating from the perspective of the public when we hear an applicant characterize a development like this as infill. Now, there may be reasons to grant an annexation, or I shouldn't say grant, that is something that we take on as a city as a responsibility when we annex. There may be reasons to do that. In this case, there may be reasons for flexibility. There may be reasons for just simply being a humanitarian and doing it, but not because it's infill. Look over to the right here, to the east, Plano Lane. You will remember that Plano Lane is an area in contention. It was a proposed development about a decade ago or so, wisely turned down because it was sprawl in the foothills. As this is, it's just on a smaller scale. And so what does this mean when we listen and we hear an applicant call this infill? It really is a mirror being held up to us. It's a mirror that says we prefer to hear a convenient mischaracterization of the land versus the reality. And that's a problem. It really erodes public discourse. It erodes public trust in the process. I don't understand how you or we as a city can kind of listen to people call this as infill. To the north, yes, it's the city of Boise, 1999 annexed with subject to a fire station being built on Pierce Park Lane. 20 years later, it hasn't been built because it's characterized by sprawl. We don't build infrastructure out here. We haven't built it because it's sprawl. It's not infill. So I just hope that we can become a little bit more accurate in our language that we use, a little bit more rational, a little bit more logical, or else we really can't discuss these things in a way that makes any sense. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor, I don't have anyone else with their hand raised.
All right. And with that, before we close the hearing, actually, the applicant, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
Madam Mayor, thanks. I'll be brief. Certainly understand Mr. Llewellyn's frustrations. I think infill is a term of art that is subject to varying interpretations. My interpretation is that this site is nearly surrounded by the city of Boise and it's vacant. And so a development there would be infill. That being said, this being characterized as infill is not material to granting or denying this application. It meets the city's annexation standards in that it's in the area of city impact and it's contiguous to the city limits. As to utilities, I know there were some questions from the council earlier, and I do just want to answer those as well. This is a unique site. There are utilities to the west. In 2015, this area and Eugene Lane was annexed by the city. None of the properties on Eugene Lane are served with central sewer. And we spoke at length with Public Works about this property, and it meets the city's sewer service policy in that it's 1,000 feet from a city sewer line, and so it's the city's policy not to connect it. And that's all I have for the council. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Further questions for staff or the applicant before I close the hearing? Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. So Cody, I understand that this is 1,000 feet from existing sewer line. What's the age of the septic systems of the existing lots on Eugene? And if one of those fails, will they be required to hook up? Are they close enough to be required? I guess I'm asking, does it make sense to proactively run the line close enough to allow this lot to hook into it, recognizing that at some point we'll want sewer up there?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, I don't honestly know the age of the septic systems in the area. The sewer system is actually a distance a ways down Hill Road. What I would say as it relates to this property, if they seek to construct anything more than one single family home, that couldn't occur without the extension of
But the DA limits them to that, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Madam Mayor?
Is that Councilman Halliburton?
Yep.
Great.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Cody, similar question, I guess, just with water. So since this is a potential hillside ordinance that might be required to be sprinklered, is it common for us to do wells and sprinklers, or is it typically that you would have to be running to city water in order to do sprinklers on a hillside ordinance?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, they can certainly design a sprinkler system based on their own well and pressurizing that system. I believe there also, in speaking with fire earlier today, there may also be a requirement that a fire hydrant be provided even for a single family home up here, which honestly would provide a measure of safety for the homes that are up there now that doesn't exist today. So there is an opportunity to improve the situation, actually.
All right, thank you, Cody.
All right. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I move approval of CAR 2016-6506 North Eugene Lane, annexation of 2.97 acres with a zoning designation of A1 DA, open lands with a development agreement.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I'm going to support this annexation. Certainly, the other path to development would be to leave it in the county. I suspect the county would be amenable to cleaning up the lot split so that it would be made legal. I believe it will have better control having it in the city so that we can work on the things such as the fire hydrant and the sprinklers and various other items that I think will make this a better development in the end.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I just want to address the fact that tonight we are not approving a development on this site. We are only approving the annexation. And as Jeff pointed out, it's due to the owner needing to be able to provide title insurance when they sell, which is incredibly complicated for anyone that's ever dealt with title insurance. Once you have something on title that is complicated, it's imperative that you get that cleaned up. And so I think providing that to the property owner is important. Also, I just want to point out that annexation also provides future property owners with such wonderful amenities that the city of Boise provides, like access to our libraries. So I think that that would be a really great opportunity for the future owners of this property. And maybe we'll see this back in the future for a development agreement.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
I'll be supporting this motion as well for two reasons. The first is, the relevant test is whether it's contiguous to the city's area of impact or contiguous to the city limits and within the area of impact. And this is, it's not really about different ways to define sprawl or those issues, at least on the annexation question. There are other issues and other conversations to have when the time comes to develop it, and I'm sure that we will. We should recognize that we'll be dealing with somebody else at that time. Maybe they'll have the brains to hire the same attorney, or maybe not. But this may be the last time we see this party. So then the next question is, should we do it? Is it good policy? And I think it is, because as someone else pointed out earlier, it's not really a question of whether someone's going to try to develop this property. It's a question of whether we're going to be doing it as a city or whether somebody's going to be working with the county to do it. This is inside. I mean, you can see the map. It's surrounded by city property. We should be the jurisdictional agency controlling how and what gets developed there. So I think both because it's legally permissible to annex and because it's really good policy to do it in this case, I'll be supporting the motion.
All right. It looks like it's a votes in order. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Thompson.
I think you said yes.
Okay. We'll count Councilmember Thompson as a yes.
Yep, he's thumbs up.
Perfect. Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Great, thank you. Jeff, thanks. Good to see you. And
Thank you
Richard,
all.
thanks for calling in. Good to see you as well, Richard.
Hi, everyone.
Good night, everybody. Okay, next up, we have CR 20-22. Kevin, hello. So we've got Kevin from our team and then Eric Anderson, the applicant from ALC Architecture. The clerk will be connecting you and we'll go from there. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm Kevin Holmes, a planner here in the PDS department. I'll be taking us through the last two items tonight. So this one here tonight is a request for a modification of a development agreement for a property located at 709 North Cole Road, shown here in red. So back in 2006, this property was rezoned from LOD to the current C1D DA zoning. And the development agreement put into place then limited the uses to just over a dozen or so commercial, retail, and personal service type uses. The applicant today is proposing to add multifamily residential to that list and to include a conceptual site plan for such a development. This is a relatively minor modification, as in your typical C1 zoning, multifamily is a conditionally allowed use. And with this modification, that would now be the case here. The conceptual multifamily site plan shown here on the right is remarkably similar to the existing commercial retail site plan currently included on the DA in the left. The layout generally meets what we're looking for with these types of developments, with the buildings placed along Cole Road, parking behind, and the cross access being maintained to the north. It's important to note here that the details of the design will need to be approved through both a planned unit development application with the Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as an associated design review approval. These further reviews will allow the city ample opportunities to dig deeper into the details of how this site will develop. As detailed in your project memo, the planning team finds that the applicant's proposal is consistent with the standards of approval including the Development Code, Blueprint Boise, and all requirements of the reviewing agencies and departments. As such, we are recommending approval of the application. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions for Kevin? All right, well, let's go ahead and hear from Eric.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Appreciate the presentation and you working through us through the process. Madam Mayor and council members, thanks for being here tonight. And I can be rather brief with this. We've read through the staff report and looked at the site-specific requirements, and we agree to the recommendations and requirements included in that report. Really, we stand for any questions. This is, like Kevin pointed out, this is a pretty simple request to add multifamily to the development agreement. And yeah, please fire away with any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you, Eric, for being with us tonight. I used to work at the mall. I actually spent my entire college career working at the mall. And so I'm very familiar with this corner. I'm wondering if you explored, rather than providing on-site parking, if you explored doing a shared parking agreement with Boise Town Square in order to expand the footprint of your development.
We have not looked at that, and that's something I'm definitely willing to work with our team and the owners of the project, who are probably listening in right now. So it's something we would be up for discussion. And, some of those things we haven't fully explored. We've tried to maintain everything on site at this point.
Just thought I would throw it out there because that corner of their parking lot is never parked up. So might be just a little extra tool for you.
No, we really appreciate that input. Thank you.
All right, Eric, it looks like there are no further questions. There's no neighborhood association of record here, so I'll go ahead and open it up to the general public. Is anybody raising their hand?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right. Nobody here to testify on this. There were no further questions for the applicant or staff. Before I close the hearing, anything else? All right, I'll go ahead and close the hearing.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move approval of CAR 20-22 ALC Architecture 709 North Cole Road modification to a development agreement to include residential uses and a new conceptual site plan on 1.64 acres in a C1DDA.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Oh, yep.
as Councilmember Woodings alluded to, I think this small area is really ripe for some additional housing, and I hope that this is the beginning of a trend.
Wonderful. All right, clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Clegg.
Yes.
Halliburton.
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Thompson.
Thumbs up.
Count that as a yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Got him.
Woodings.
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Next up, we have Kevin again with CR 20-15.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. This last item tonight is a request for a rezone of approximately 1 acre from an R1C single-family residential zoning to an R1MD town lot with design review. Also included with this is a preliminary plat and a final plat for the first phase of the development. An associated planned unit development application was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission on January 11th. And the property shown here in red is located on the corner of Forsythia and 33rd Street, just southeast of the Hill and 36th Neighborhood Activity Center. The subject property has a compact land use designation and an existing R1C zoning as shown here. The compact land use designation does allow for a variety of zones, including the requested R1M zone. Residential uses surround the property with a mixture of densities, including single-family homes, duplexes, triplexes, and a multifamily development which lies directly adjacent to the subject property to the southwest with a density of 16 units per acre. To the west is North 36th Street, which has a bus stop, and to the east is Hill Road with an established bike route. The planned townhome subdivision is arranged as shown here, with the majority of the homes fronting on either Forsythia or 33rd Street. The density of the development at approximately 16 units per acre is just under the limit of the proposed R1M zone. Each home is proposed to have 2-car garage with 7 guest parking spaces on site and additional on-street parking. The first phase of the development, which is the final plat before you tonight and shown here in red, is made up of 7 of the 14 townhomes. Second phase is planned to come in once improvements related to the irrigation facility along Forsythia Drive are installed in coordination with ACHD and the Boise City Canal Company. The design of the development is currently under review by the design review team and should be complete here shortly with just some minor conditions of approval. The proposed townhomes themselves are under the 35-foot height limit of both the proposed R1MD zone and the adjacent R1C zone, and setbacks to the adjacent properties are being exceeded. During the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, several nearby residents did raise concerns related to the compatibility of the townhomes with the existing neighborhood, increases to traffic, and impacts to parking along adjacent streets. During their deliberations, the Planning and Zoning Commission did find the applicant's proposal to be consistent with the standards of approval, including the Development Code, Blueprint Boise, and the requirements of all reviewing agencies as departments. As such, they unanimously recommended approval of the applications with conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Kevin?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Kevin, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. I have a question about if we approve the subdivision portion of this, is there a way that we can attach hours of construction? This neighborhood's been putting up with an awful lot of construction lately, and I think some of it's happened early morning, late night, and weekends. And in the past, we've been able to do that.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, that's a great idea. And one of our standard conditions of approval for these types of developments that are around residences is to limit those hours. I believe it's off the top of my head, either 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning and then wrapping up around 8 o'clock at night. I could be off an hour or so on that. And then slightly adjusted on the weekends, which this is a standard condition included with this one as well.
But we could limit them further than that.
Sure.
Okay,
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, yes.
thank you.
All right, I see Brian Wenzel up there. Oh, wait, sorry. Councilman Halliburton, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Kevin, just quick question. You made reference to it a little bit earlier, but we have the Boise City Canal running in front of the property along Forsythia. And is the plan to tile that entire section? Based on the drawings, that's kind of what I see, but I couldn't quite tell.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, that is correct. Yes, they're in the process actually right now of rebuilding the box culvert on 33rd, and then they'll be coordinating with all those entities to tile the rest of the facility along that frontage.
And then as they tile on top of it, I know that Forsythia isn't an improved street. Are there improvements that are going along that stretch, or what's the plan for on top of it?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, there is a rather substantial easement that runs with that irrigation facility, but it does allow for attached sidewalks. So the landscaping that we normally would have, like with detached sidewalks, will be pushed back in front of the townhomes, as trees are generally not allowable within that easement.
Great, thank you.
All right, looks like there are no further questions right now. Welcome, Brian, go ahead.
Great. Councilwoman, council members, and Madam Mayor, thank you for your time. Thank you to Kevin for stellar work on this project, and thank you for permitting me to choke up as I'm talking. I'm going to share a brief presentation. I'll keep it brief for expediency, and can refer to this if you have any questions. You can hear and see the screen okay? Great. So our site's located within a quarter mile of the Neighborhood Activity Center on 36th and Hill. So we think it's a great location for walkability, close proximity to transit, and a great transition between existing multifamily housing and the single family to our south and east, and the homes to the north across Forsythia. Our site planning, we've laid out units as we can, fronting on the streets. 7 units line Forsythia Drive to the north, 4 units line 33rd to the east, with the entry drive located for ACHD requirements. And the 3 units that can't afford a street frontage, we've located on a provided recreational open space. We've looked at a ton of the Boise blueprint and how we can incorporate some of the goals in our development, whether that's a mix of uses, a mix of housing types, as this transitions between the existing multifamily to the southwest and single-family homes around us. We've looked at neighborhood design principles such as connectivity, integrated parks, and open space on site. So we have a great additional sidewalks on both Forsythia and 33rd, great amenity for the project as well as the existing neighborhood. We've looked at the infill design principles, transitions in building height, streetscape character, and also thoughtful garage placement on the interior of the project. So trying to address all the requirements and goals of the Boise blueprint sets out, as well as infill housing. We think rezoning from R1C to R1M, which is kind of meant for this type of inline townhome project, is a great use of type of project that maybe doesn't exist so much in the city, but could be a great introduction of much needed housing. I've got some plans and views of what the project looks at, but I mean, we're looking at high quality design, contemporary elevation that mixes in with the neighbors. Views such as this from 33rd and Forsythia. We've studied a lot of cues from our existing context to develop the elevations with an appropriate level of design and a style that it feels like it's integrated with the rest of the neighborhood. We've got elevated stoops that give us that north end feel, high quality durable materials and a contemporary color palette, and high quality landscaping. We think this development is a great addition for the neighborhood, and we agree with all the recommendations and requirements. There is one I'll just skip ahead a little bit, be cognizant of your time. Bear with me 1 second while it populates. There's one recommendation by planning and zoning that we wanted to kind of raise. We brought this up with them and they recommended we bring it up with you tonight. The condition of approval number 5 states that we want to record and submit a cross easement for the western and southern driveways to extend for potential future development. We didn't present these slides to Planning and Zoning Commission, but based on their feedback, we kind of wanted to bring it to your attention as well and see if this made sense with the blueprint Boise. We know one of the goals of the zoning code is service drives shall not encourage or promote pass-through connectivity between public and private streets. And I just wanted to call out on this slide real quick. The 2 yellow highlighted property lines are the adjacent properties. Everything to the south and west of the yellow is the existing 2-acre site of Apple Point multifamily, which we feel is, this is continuing that transition between existing multifamily housing and the single family to the north and east. We just made a quick exhibit that shows that kind of thinking ahead and how this would be kind of future-proofed. If a development agency decided to develop maybe some of the future parcels, such as potentially the home on the corner of 34th and Forsythia, or the home to the south. In both cases, based on the location of those yellow property lines, they coincide with the end of our drive aisles. So you couldn't develop either the parcel to the west or the parcel to the south without acquiring Apple Point, the 2 acres in tandem with that. And that seemed to be prohibitive with some of the development requirements from the zoning code, because if you acquired the site to the west or the site to the south and also had to acquire Apple Point to make any realistic use of those access points, you would have a site large enough to then require its own access, and you'd have to come off of 34th, go through our site and go onto 33rd. And we're just trying to prevent that people using that's a shortcut from the southwest to the northeast. So we understand the overall goals of eliminating driveways and conditioning projects to have these kind of flexibility going forward. We just think this is a site-specific case where you would have to acquire so much large parcels based on the configuration of the Apple Point multifamily housing to our southwest, that it wouldn't be realistic in our case, and just thought we could try to avoid the stigma of the new owners having this condition, trying to understand in the future, potentially people driving through their community to connect between 34th and 33rd. So not a major issue, just wanted to bring it up as we felt was, as we developed this, it was in keeping with the goals of the zoning code. So with that, appreciate your time and stand for questions. Thank you so much.
Madam Mayor.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Couple of questions, if I could. Welcome. There are a fair number of mature trees on this lot. Have you had an arborist look at those, and are you planning to retain any of them? They seem to be around the edges where it's possible to save them.
Councilwoman Clegg, thank you for that question. Part of the conditions, I believe, was an arborist report. We'll do everything we can to save the trees that we can. Based on tiling the canal along Forsythia, we understand there's certain requirements to where we can and can't locate landscaping. We want to make sure that we'll do that arborist report and save what we can.
So question, when you cover that canal, are you required to take the trees out? Or can you cover it? I've heard that there is a kind of pipe, HPDE, that you can leave the trees. You don't have to take the trees out. Have you explored that?
Great question, Councilwoman. We have not explored that. We're waiting for that arborist report to come back, and we'll of course do what we can. And sometimes those arborist reports reveal that trees are not in great condition. We of course want to make sure that we can save what we can. And if something is not in great condition, this gives us an opportunity to maybe upgrade it somehow with our generous landscaping we're proposing. So I don't know the answer to that.
My next question, I understood your request about the cross-access agreements. Adding those, I guess my question is, what does adding those hurt? Because if those properties were to develop in a different way than what you show, they might be valuable. They would only be used if that happened.
Great question. I guess we just thought it would be an extra thing in these townhome when you go to sell. Do some of the neighbors have, or some of the future residents have some extra requirements, wondering what this is about. I'd say it's not a deal breaker by any means. We appreciate planning and zoning's comments, of course. Just as looking at it, we noticed that in order to develop any adjacent properties, thinking about, again, kind of future-proofing this property, it would necessarily open up a parcel on 33rd, then, on 34th, we're on 33rd, connecting 33rd and 34th. And it seemed like that would kind of counterintuitively work against some of the goals, but I don't think that that is a deal breaker by any means. So,
okay. Thank you. As I see it, it would function much like an alley, which we have all over, and actually provides good connectivity.
Madam Mayor.
Go ahead.
Following on this line of questioning a little bit, what is the width, what is the current width of both of those private drives?
Council member, that the width is at least 22 feet per backup space requirements for the 2-car garages.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, continuing on the same question there. Brian, so when Council President Clegg asked you what it would potentially hurt or interfere with, I'm looking at the southbound lane, and it does look like you have constructed a pedestrian path that runs along the southern border that connects over to 33rd Street. And I guess in looking at that, that might be potentially one thing that it would interfere with. Is that correct?
Councilmember Halliburton, yes, thank you. Yes, it would cover up that that pedestrian circulation, which we're striving hard for the connectivity between the site and then to the sidewalks. And also it would kind of take out some open space at the terminus of the westerly drive, where we have provided generous open space as well as rooftop private decks for the units. So we feel like we have enough open space, but it would sacrifice, potentially, we would choose to locate not any landscape there. So you wouldn't have to potentially replace it in the future. Not sure that's a driver, but yeah, the sidewalk connectivity is probably the biggest thing, the biggest loss that would cost, yes.
And just to make sure that I heard you correctly, on the east-west driveway, you're saying on the very far west side, if that was continued, that would eat into potentially some of the landscaping, the open space, trees, bushes, things along those lines?
Yes, sir. In the future, if you were ever to connect those, you'd physically, to make room for that geometry, you'd have to remove any landscaping and open space. But I think since that's such a far off thing, we probably plan to make this the greatest site plan we can, the greatest community we can, and pretend like that's not the case. I think a few landscaping several years down the road probably isn't the biggest deal, but yes, that's correct, what you said.
Sure. Thank you. Appreciate that, Brian.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right. Is anybody online to testify? All right, it looks as if nobody has raised their hands to testify on this matter. So with that, I know the applicant was just speaking, but it's your opportunity to give a closing argument or let us know anything else you'd like to know before we close the hearing.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Council members, just want to say we worked really hard and really took to heart some of the neighborhood comments. Met out there on site 4 times and spoke with the neighbors and tried to improve each time. Appreciate the approval from Planning and Zoning Commission and look forward to any design review comments. We can really make this a stellar project for the city. So thank you for your time and hope you feel the same.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
So there is a condition that requires that prior to approval of grading permits, a tree mitigation plan shall be submitted. And that will include requiring them to do an assessment of the existing trees. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, with that, I'll go ahead and close. Oh, wait, who is that? Councilman Halliburton?
Yeah. One final question here, and maybe this is for Brian, maybe it's for Kevin, I'm not sure. So is there a requirement with this kind of development that we do need to tile the canal? And the reason why I ask is I'm wondering if there's any value as far as tree preservation or anything else along those lines in not tiling it. And so I guess that's the question. Is there requirements? Is there a reason for tiling it versus leaving it open?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, I can take a stab at that. We do have some general subdivision requirements that, with local streets that we like to get pedestrian connections along them. We also have to take a look at what ACHD has provided as comments in their local street sections, which they have requirements as well for how they're to be developed as these types of applications come in. Also from comments of the Boise City Canal Company itself, it seems like tiling this facility was something that they desired at this time.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you. Looks like that's it. We can go ahead and close the hearing.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
This is a 2-part, let's see, sorry. A 2-part motion. So first, I move that we approve CAR 20-15 Riva Ridge Engineering 3435 North 33rd Street rezone of 1.0 acres from R1C to R1MD.
Second. Motion and second. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
the R1M zone is one that isn't used a lot, especially in this part of town. I think it's a perfect zone for this particular lot in order to get the density, and glad to see it used.
All right, you can go ahead and call the roll.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
did I miss a second?
I seconded.
Oh, thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks for the clarification. Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I move approval of Forsythia Commons subdivision, SUB 2051 and SUB 2058, Boise City preliminary and final plat at 3435 North 33rd Street, for residential subdivision of 14 buildable lots, 4 common lots. And ask that the planning staff, before issuing building permits, review the hours of construction and ensure that the neighborhood will not be subjected to lengthy hours on weekends and evenings.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All right, clerk?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
I'm sorry, I have discussion.
Oh, sorry, didn't hear that. Go ahead.
I'm supportive of the motion, but I want to talk about condition 5 a little bit because I'm not sure that those cross easements make sense here. The purpose is to, facilitate future connectivity. But if you look at the drawing that we just saw, we just had on the screen a moment ago, and unfortunately, Mr. Wenzel took it down. It looks like if those cross easements were there and then were later used to create that connectivity. Thank you. What you'll end up with is basically one block that is townhouses wide deep with a 22-foot street on one side and a fairly wide street on the other side. And it doesn't seem like what we're after with connectivity or with creating the type of residential quiet feel that we're aiming for with this transition period place between the activity center and the single family homes. I understand, the purpose of that future connectivity, but and to me, it's not really relevant whether it's possible for the land use reasons that Mr. Wenzel explained. But if it were to occur, I see it creating a kind of urban pavement, dense, surrounded by traffic set of living spaces for the people in these townhomes. And I don't think that's the feel that we're shooting for this neighborhood. So I'm supportive of the motion, but I'm hoping to facilitate a discussion to see if the rest of the council is interested in removing condition 5.
Madam Mayor. Councilmember Bajent, I appreciate your concern. I guess for me, the biggest thing is that having that cross-access agreement would allow, at very least, a pedestrian gate in this fence, and allow a child or a neighbor who lives in the townhouses to visit someone next door or head down 36th. It's, to me, no different really than being able to walk around your neighborhood without having to go out of your way to get there. Unless those lots were assembled, it's unlikely that there would in the future be a driveway access. If it were a driveway access, it would require a full redevelopment of those lots to the west. But at least this way, there's a possibility of getting a gate that would allow pedestrian access.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I wonder if it's possible to restrict the width of the easement to, say, 8 feet or 10 feet so it doesn't turn into a 22-foot street parallel to another residential street. That would create a pedestrian walkway, room for a gate, a walkable neighborhood without turning it into, 3/4 of an acre of pavement.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
As I read condition 5, it says record and submit a cross-access easement agreement. Doesn't specify a width. This is a final plat, so maybe, I don't know if staff has any comment and if we can take comment at this point.
Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, I'd be happy to look at that. Yeah, the intent of that condition was to continue the drive aisle with the idea that it could provide kind of that alley loaded home situation on those other lots. This condition certainly could be amended to limit the width of that, or just call it a pedestrian only connection.
Madam Mayor, I guess, for me, the real thing is if somebody did assemble land to the west and wanted to continue the alley loaded townhouse style development, it would sure be nice to have this access agreement. Having it on this side of the fence is not going to require it to happen on the other side of the fence. But having it on this side of the fence allows it. At least for me, I'm still supportive of the condition as written.
Madam Mayor,
Yep.
maybe I can ask a question of Council President. I appreciate the intention of Council Member Bajent's jumping in and furthering the discussion, because I too have some concerns, like looking at that thinking, do I want a car driving through this area at all, unless they're going to their garage? And what I probably don't want to see if I'm a resident is anybody cutting through my neighborhood or having the possibility to cut through my neighborhood, unless, as Council President Clegg mentioned, they were on a bicycle or they were walking over to their neighbor's house. And so I absolutely love the idea and the ability to have that pedestrian and bicycle access. So I guess my question to Council President Clegg would be that if we were able to, if it did open up in the future and we were able to have cars go through, maybe there's some connectivity that I'm not seeing, or there's an ability that adds something to this development or other developments. And so maybe if she could just explain that a little bit more for me to understand the value of having people being able to drive through, that would be helpful.
Madam Mayor, I'll take a shot at it. Staff can certainly pipe in. Councilmember Halliburton, for me, as I stated, this would not happen as driveway access unless the lots to the west were assembled and similar type development were planned for that lot, which would mean this would be essentially the extension of an alley. Without that, you likely wouldn't be able to get as dense a development if you were to assemble those two lots to the west. With it, you might be able to. The likelihood of that is relatively low, but in the meantime, it doesn't do any harm to have the access agreement on this side of the fence, recognizing that if that were to happen, it would have to come before a city council through a planning commission process and through the planning department process and be approved at all stages for whatever that access would be. So it's not just going to happen willy-nilly. And so for me, that gives me enough comfort that allowing the access agreement to be in place just allows that possibility.
Thank you, Council President.
All right, I think we can take a vote now.
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
All right, thank you. And that was the last of the motions, because you did both subs as part of that motion, correct?
I did.
Okay, great. Well, if there's nothing further to come before the council,
Madam Mayor, I move we adjourn.
second, your motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you all.